Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming today. It's a great crowd, and thank you all for being here. On behalf of Darien's Board of Selectmen and our Monuments and Ceremonies Commission, I thank you for coming today. Here on the dais, we have Reverend Gary Melillo from the Norotan Presbyterian Church, who will lead us in an invocation. We have Grand Marshal Peter Kenyon. We have our keynote speaker, Major Sharad Sami. We have our special guest speaker, the Honorable Christopher Murphy, United States Senator. We have our Board of Selectmen here, First Selectman Jamie Stevenson, Selectman Kip Coons, David Martin, Kristen Newman, and Krista McNamara, and Sarah Newman. The fire chiefs, because of COVID regulations, have been asked to not be up here so we could do appropriate spacing, and that's Fire Marshal Bob Bush, Assistant Fire Marshal Mark McEwen, and the Fire Chiefs Brendan Keene, Vic Pensiero, and Zach McEwen. We also have here our State Senator Patricia Billy Miller, our State Representative Terry Wood, our State Representative Matt Blumenthal. We also have our Chief of Police, Chief Don Anderson. And we have our Girl Scout, Noah DeRocher Pune, who is going to read the Gettysburg Address. Scouts BSA, Senior Patrol Leader Alan Shao, to read the General Logan's Order number 11. We have Chris Andrade and the Tudor Singers to sing the National Anthem and America the Beautiful. And we have the Darien Police Honor Guard for the firing squad, and we have Russ Ebersol from the 89th National Guard to blow taps for us. Before I ask Reverend Morello to come up, many hands made this day possible. I'd like to thank our Parks and Rec Department for setting everything up for us. I'd like to thank our Department of Public Works for clearing everything on the post road, our police department for working in conjunction with the state police to keep everything moving smoothly, Nielsen's Florist for providing space, Springdale Florist for the wreaths, VFW Post 693, Christopher Andrade and the Tudor Singers, DAF Media, and Channel 79 for broadcasting our parade and ceremony. I'd also like to thank Goodwife Shopping Center for allowing us to use their space, and the Darien Library and DAF Media for making the presentation possible. I'd also like to thank the Connecticut National Guard and their honor unit here today, and all of the marching units that made today possible. But I'd especially like to thank the town's two executive secretaries, Linda O'Leary and Karen Dunn. For truly without them, nothing would have happened. So let's give them a big round of applause. There's a long history behind the Memorial Day Parade here in Darien. In 1864, Benjamin Fitch donated land and paid over $100,000 to construct the Fitch Home for Soldiers and Sailors, the first in the nation for non-commissioned servicemen. After General Logan issued his Order number 11 in 1868, this is the first veteran cemetery in the state. And those veterans who were living in the home would walk down that hill on what was then called Decoration Day to decorate the graves of their comrades. So it is probable that Darien can lay claim to one of the longest standing Memorial Day celebrations, and thank you all for perpetuating it. Darien continues to honor those who gave the last full measure, and those who are here today are from many different backgrounds. Some of our forebearers were on this continent 700, 800 years ago. Others came hundreds of years ago. Some came last year. It's very easy to see our differences. It's heartening to celebrate our individuality, but not today. Today we celebrate our commonality, one nation under one flag, striving to preserve liberty and freedom. There's no free stuff, but freedom, and that freedom was purchased at a high price, bought and paid for by those who never came home. That is why we are here today, to thank those who never made it back, to honor them, to recognize their sacrifice. I now call upon the Reverend Gary M. Morello from the Norotan Presbyterian Church to lead us in prayer.
Love. It's the most powerful virtue we possess as a human family. And it becomes even more dynamic when the adjective sacrificial is in front of it. Brothers and sisters, may we hold together the truth that moms and dads at one point looked their sons and daughters in the eyes because they felt called to sacrifice and serve on behalf of those they know and those they'll never meet. And what a gift that we've been given a sacred text, the most influential book this world will ever know, the Holy Bible, which holds the spectrum of our emotions as a human family. And for those here today mourning the loss of a loved one, we're reminded that in our brokenness, God meets us in our pain, as the Bible says this in Psalm 43, verse 18. Truly, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those crushed in spirit. And in the same breath, brothers and sisters, we give thanks to God for those who took a call to put their whole mind, body, and soul on the line on behalf, let me be very clear, on behalf of you and me. And so the Bible tells us this in the Gospel of John, chapter 15. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I has loved you. No one has greater love than this, than to lay down one's life for a friend. And so in the spirit of a long year of being apart, may we, this moment, this day, remember that the soil that we stand on is by the grace and love, service and sacrifice of men and women that know us and will never know us. And so, brothers and sisters, with love and gratitude at the very center of our hearts, I invite you to join me in our opening prayer. Gracious Lord, we thank you that you sent your Son, Jesus Christ, and the Spirit of love to show us what it is to sacrifice, to give freely of this world on behalf of those you love. And so, Father, this day we hold close the men and women who have lost their lives, waking up that morning to serve and give everything they have. May we remember and never forget that sacrifice. Thanks be to God. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Morello. Next, I call upon our Grand Marshal, Peter Kenyon, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
For all those military that are here, you can salute as Congress allows us to. Hand salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. too.
Thank you, Commander Kenyon. Next, we have Christopher Andrade leading the Tudor Singers in our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
I normally sing along, but not when they're singing. As my pastor said, and I hope you remember this the next time you go to a ball game, if God blessed you with a beautiful voice, raise it in praise to him. And if he cursed you, as he did me, with a horrible singing voice, sing even louder just to get even. Next, we're going to hear a recitation of Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, and that will be given to us by Noah DeRocher Pion, who is a Girl Scout in Troop 50665. Noah?
Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty, and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation, so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here give their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note, nor will long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here, dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
Thank you, Noah. That was beautiful. Next up, we have DSA Scout Alan Schau, Senior Patrol Leader, Troop 35, who will read General Logan's Order Number 11. Alec?
The 30th day of May, 1868, is designed for the purpose of strewing with flowers or otherwise decorating the graves of comrades who died in defense of their country during the late rebellion, and whose bodies now lie in almost every city, village, and hamlet churchyard in the land. We should guard their graves with sacred vigilance. All that the consecrated wealth and taste of the nation can add to their adornment and security is but a fitting tribute to the memory of her slain defenders. Let no wanton foot tread rudely upon such hallowed grounds. Let pleasant paths invite the coming and going of reverent visitors and fond mourners. Let no vandalism of avarice or neglect, no ravages of time, testify to the present or to the coming generations that we have forgotten, as a people, the cost of a free and undivided republic. If other eyes grow dull and other hands slack, and other hearts cold in the solemn trust, ours shall keep it well as long as the light and warmth of life remains in us. Let us then, at the time appointed, gather around their sacred remains and garland passionless mounds above them with the choicest flowers of springtime. Let us raise above them the dear old flag they saved from dishonor. Let us in this solemn presence renew our pledges to aid and assist those whom they have left among us as sacred charges upon the nation's gratitude, the soldiers and the sailors, widow and orphan. It is our purpose to inaugurate this observance with the hope that it will be kept up from year to year, while a survivor of the war remains to honor the memory of his departed comrades.
Thank you, Alan. Christopher, I think you have 2 new candidates here for the Tudor Singers next year. Do they have great speaking voices? I can't wait to hear them singing. Next, it is our tradition to have our first selectman read the names of those residents of Darien who have given their lives in service to our country. For those of you who have a program, those names are listed on the back of the program. And I invite our first selectman, Jamie Stevenson, to come read the names of those war dead. And I invite Commander Sue Ann Shore, United States Naval Reserve, to honor those men at the conclusion of each conflict. Commander Shore is going to ring the bell 3 times to signify our honor to those who did not come home. First Selectman Stevenson.
Good morning, everyone. From the Civil War, 1861 to 1865, Carl Ackerman, James H. Bates, Louis H. Benedict, Joseph Bushy, Nathan R. Bixby, Charles H. Clock, Boris Curtis, Philip Fortune, Michael Harmon, Frederick Henderson, William H. Howe, William H. Howman, Edward S. Hoyt, Isaac L. Hoyt, Elias Johnson, George D. Jordan, Frank LaRoche, Samuel McGlew, John Mallon, William H. Northrop, Gabriel W. Platt, John Price, Franklin H. Schofield, Albert O. Seeley, Silas F. Slauson, Thomas Smith, Jacob W. Vincent, Joseph Boyd, Isaac Weed, Raymond Weed, Adolph Werner, James A. Whaley, George W. Wilmot. World War I, 1917 to 1918. David C. Bispham, Lawrence F. Callahan, Martin H. Gill, Wilfred T. Lowndes, Murtaugh C. McDonald, Edward G. Punzelt, Ernest F. Sexton, George Straka. World War II, 1941 to 1945. Sanford Adams, Eric Allen, William A. Akrig II, Elton S. Barrett, Orrin K. Boyce, James Butts, Joseph A. Chase, Peter T. Chester, Horace C. Cleveland III, Louis Codling, David O. Devlin, Anthony R. Freight, Donald Frothingham Jr., Raymond L. Howe, Pasquale G. Improda, Lawrence H. Isbell, Thomas W. Jenkins, Jefferson M. Johnson, John L. Masterson, George R. Miller, Alan R. Morehouse, Arthur L. Nielsen, William T. O'Neill Jr., Francis W. O'Toole, Otis Overton, Rosario F. Pollenberry, Harold D. Parody, Kenneth C. Phillips, John Pine, Louis E. Rayner, Thomas F. Rendler, David L. Rosenberg, Charles B. Rossi, Gordon S. Smith, Thomas F. Smith, Stephen J. Tansick, Torger D. Topol, Julius W. Torek, Anthony Vitti, Clarence C. Walker. From the Korean War, 1950 to 1953. George R. Broadhurst, James A. Dooley Jr., Eugene Murphy, Julius C. Nachi, Robert J. Perkinson. And from the Vietnam War, 1958 to 1975. Alan L. Deirdrickson, John B. Geeson Jr., James S. MacArthur, David I. Mixter, William R. Patience Jr., John B. Sherman.
Christopher, before you start, we may not have had 407 Darien residents who served in the Gulf War, Operation Enduring Freedom, but I thank God that we did have scores of people from this town who served in both of those conflicts, and I just thank God that we don't have to read any names from this town for those two conflicts. Christopher, you're up.
Skies, for amber waves of gray, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. from sea to shining sea.
Thank you, beautiful. I apologize that I've left my notes of introduction back at the shopping center, but our keynote speaker, Major in the United States Army National Guard, Sharad Sami, has served actively in the military for a long time, and among other assignments, he was in Abu Dhabi settling death claims and repatriation of refugees. He has worked tirelessly for nonprofit causes. He's been a Darien resident for a long time. He served on our Assessor's Adjudication Board. He's an active member in the local chapter 6933 of the VFW. Both he and his wife are proud to be naturalized citizens of this country. They have 3 lovely children they're raising here in Darien. And please join me in welcoming Major Sharad Sami.
Good morning. I'd like to thank the Monuments and Ceremonies Commission for the great honor of being able to speak with you today. I'd also like to thank the members in the audience that have fought and served in the Korean Wars and the Vietnam War. We're approaching the 75th anniversary of the Korean War, and we're around the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War, and so I thank you all for your service. You deserve this recognition. We live in an age of symbols. Logos barrage us every day, day after day. When we eat, when we sleep, when we rest, and when we work. It's easy in an age of symbols to forget what those symbols mean. We have 2 very important symbols in front of us today: the gravestones and the United States flag. They're not just logos. They're something more, something different. And we are also here to celebrate a day and honor a day that is something different and something more. We're here to honor those who have died for the service of our nation and for each of us here. This group includes women and men, adults and children from all ethnicities and all backgrounds. It's easy, as with so many different symbols, to just call them heroes and end it there. But what makes these people extraordinary and great is that they were ordinary people, like you and me. They had the same fears, the same doubts, the same hopes, and the same convictions. They all feared death, but they did their duty to the best of their ability, and they sacrificed their lives so that each and every one of us can have the opportunity of a good life. I'd like to tell you about some of those heroes. Gideon Weed was a 19-year-old kid who got to see the American Revolution firsthand. He died fighting for our freedoms against the British on August 2nd, 1781, falling around where the Hindley Elementary School sits today. James Jones of Darien was supposed to become a blacksmith, but he was a sailor at heart, and he served on merchant vessels throughout most of his young life. He died at the age of 35 as a prisoner of war on a British ship off the coast of England during the War of 1812. Boris Curtis was a 24-year-old farm worker from our quiet town. He was declared missing and presumed dead after the First Battle of Bull Run on July 21st, 1861, just at the start of the Civil War. And Captain Isaac Hoyt, a 44-year-old farmer from Ox Ridge, died in March 1862 from typhoid as a prisoner off the coast of North Carolina. On December 7th, 1941, at Pearl Harbor, Lieutenant Eric Allen, a Navy fighter pilot from Noroton Avenue, and Ensign William O'Neill on board the USS Arizona from Stanley Road were both killed in action. 2 students of the Darien High School class of 1940, Elton Barrett of the Post Road and Rosario Bobby Palomberry of Norotan Heights, fought and fell in World War II, both dying in 1944. Signalman 3rd Class Barrett died in the South Atlantic when his ship, the SS Robin Goodfellow, was torpedoed and sank. Bobby Palomberry, in the Army, was injured in North Africa and again in Italy, and he died of wounds in Cassino, Italy. At a mail call on Mother's Day, his younger brother, Patsy Palomberry, also of Darien and serving with the U.S. Army Air Force in Europe, rushed forward to get a letter from his older brother. Instead, he got a returned letter that he had written to his older brother, marked deceased. It was the worst day of Patsy Palomberry's life. Marine Corporal Julius Caesar Nachi was 20 years old when he died on October 27, 1950, in Wonsan, Korea. He's fondly remembered for playing his harmonica at boot camp in Parris Island. During a downpour in Camp Lejeune, when the fields around the barracks were flooded, he ran fast and belly jumped into the water, sliding across the grass, much to the delight of his comrades. His platoon was overrun by an advancing North Korean unit that moved so quickly and with so many people that 10 of Corporal Nachi's platoon were killed while they were sleeping in their sleeping bags. And remember Corporal Alan Lee Diedrichson, who joined the Marine Corps. He died July 2nd, 1967 at 23 years old in Quang Tri, Vietnam. Corporal Diedrichson was killed in action, heroically facing mortar fire of the enemy. 5 others fell in Darien during that war: John B. Geeson Jr., James MacArthur, David Mixter, William Patience Jr., and John Sherman. In this field, you have service people that have fought in the Civil War, the Indian Wars, the Mexican border skirmish, the Spanish-American War, the Philippine insurrection, World War I, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. There are people here from other armies that fought with us. Veterans from Canada, Great Britain, Italy, the First World War, Australia, the Philippines, Brazil, Czechoslovakia, Poland, France, Belgium, and Vietnam. There are men and women here, couples who are both in the service. And one of those buried here was just 14 years old when he earned the Congressional Medal of Honor. Remember what these symbols mean, especially today, but every day. And remember what our flag represents. The stripes are for our 13 original colonies who dreamed and aspired of a better government and a better world. The stars are for each of our glorious states, each so very different, but each so very important to the others. And remember what the colors represent. The red stands for hardiness and valor. The white stands for purity and innocence. And the blue stands for vigilance, perseverance, and justice. Think about that for a moment. That is what the red, white, and blue represent. More than just colors to wear on your clothes. And think of what the opposite represents. Weakness, cowardice, corruption, cynicism, fickleness, neglect, and injustice. These are not the principles on which our great nation was founded. And those are not the qualities that we should strive for as citizens. Remember that some people do use these symbols out of convenience or correctness. But I ask each of you to remember they are worthy of more than sound bites, Instagram messages, or Twitter tweets. They are symbols that define who you are as an American. They are also symbols that should remind you every day to be more than you are, to be more than you even think you can be. Be the heroes that the fallen are. In conclusion, I would like to read you a poem written from World War I. It is In Flanders Fields by John McCrae. In Flanders Fields, the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place. And in the sky, the larks, still bravely singing, fly scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you, from failing hands, we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If you break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Field. Remember these symbols for what they are today and every other day, and never forget them. For if we break faith with them and what they fought for, we will truly be lost. Remember those who gave their lives for us today. Remember that they were just like you and me. Remember that they gave what we all treasure the most, life, so that you can enjoy our great nation each and every day. Make them proud so that they can rest in peace. And make them proud to know that their sacrifices were not in vain. Thank you.
Thank you, Major. Nice words. Words to remember. In addition to our keynote speaker, we are honored today that the Honorable Senator Christopher O. Murphy, who has about 28 things to do every 15 minutes, carved time out of his busy schedule to join us today. So we have asked him to come up and say a few words. Senator Murphy.
Thank you very much. Sherrod, those were incredibly important words. Thank you for your years of counsel and advice to many of us on military and veterans issues. Commander, thank you for your years of service to First Selectman Stevenson and to the town. Thank you for your commitment to making this a really special ceremony. Not every town, not every city in the state puts this much time and thought into Memorial Day. Not every town or city has this kind of turnout. You obviously have a legacy here, standing in the state's oldest veterans ceremony, almost 100 Darien residents who have given their life for this country over the course of our great history. But I think it's so important that you continue to put the time into this sacred day, reminding people what Memorial Day is truly, truly about. Listen, I get the chance to visit our troops both here in the United States and overseas. And I am just in awe today that we live in a country that is protected by an all-volunteer military. Every individual, every man and woman that goes into the armed services knows that their life is at risk the day that they enter the service. They know that one day their name may be on a gravestone inside a cemetery. And yet they do it because of a love for their country. They do it because of a sense of patriotism. And Memorial Day is, of course, a day where we remember those that didn't come back, but it's also a day in which we honor the fact that today it is volunteers who protect this country, less than 1% of us. And I guess today, while we are honoring those who lost their lives in the service of this country with a military uniform on, we recognize that we've lost a whole lot of other heroes over the course of the last year. Those that were serving this country by putting on scrubs or a medical uniform. Memorial Day is about those who lost their lives in the United States military in the defense of our country, but we've lost a lot of other heroes over the course of 2020 and 2021, and it's a day to remember their sacrifice as well. And lastly, I think it's great that you guys read the Gettysburg Address, and what a great job was done in reciting it today. And though Lincoln that day is memorializing the dead, he's very clearly speaking to the living, right? He talks about those who gave their last measure of devotion, but then he calls on the people that are assembled there, the throngs, most of which could barely hear him, to give increased devotion in the memory of those that were lost. He's speaking to the people who survived the Civil War to remind them what it was being fought over. And so Memorial Day is also in service of that goal, a reminder to all of us that this democracy is still so fragile. We know that today better than ever before. And that if we want it to hang around for another 240 years, if we want to honor the lives of those who have given the ultimate price for democracy's survival, then we need, over the course of the next couple of years, to do a little bit more ourselves. You can do big things, serve in local government. You can do small things, support the Scouts, right? Support the public school system, those that are teaching civic values. Support the free press. There's all sorts of small ways that we can make sure to give that increased devotion that Abraham Lincoln calls us to memorialize those who gave their last measure of devotion. I just feel so blessed to be able to represent this state, to be able to do my public service in the safety and security of the United States Capitol, because those that are memorialized here decided to do their public service in a much braver, much more heroic way. Thanks for going out of your way, Darien, to make sure that everybody remembers what this day and this weekend is about. Happy Memorial Day.
Thank you, Senator Murphy. I like that. Don't wait to be drafted. Volunteer. This town is full of volunteers, but we still have room for more. Next, we're going to have the presentation of the memorial wreaths. We're going to lay a wreath for those members who served in the United States Army, the United States Navy, the United States Marine Corps, the United States Air Force, the United States Coast Guard, the United States Merchant Marine, and for those veterans who sadly bear the name of prisoners of war missing in action. So I'm going to call upon First Selectman Jamie Stevenson and our Grand Marshal Peter Kenyon to lay the first memorial wreath for the United States Navy. And if I can call on Commander Shore to assist them. Captain. Oops, that's what happens when I leave my notes home. Sherrod, you're up next for the Army. Senator, I'll ask you to come to the company. Next, I'm going to call on Major Sherrod Sammy and Senator Christopher Murphy to place the wreath for the United States Army. I've got nothing. Next, I'm going to call on State Senator Patricia Billy Miller to accompany United States Marine Corps veteran and State Representative Matt Blumenthal to lay the wreath for the United States Marine Corps. I don't have anybody here on the dais from the United States Air Force. Do we have an Air Force veteran in the crowd? Okay, then I'm going to call on State Representative Terry Wood and Darien Chief of Police Don Anderson to lay the wreath for the United States Air Force. And do we have a member, past or present, of the United States Coast Guard? Family member of Coast Guard? I'm going to call. We have one? George. I didn't see you there. I'm going to ask the Reverend Gary Morello to accompany George to put the wreath down for the United States Coast Guard.
My dad, World War II Coast Guard.
And your name?
Susan Gray.
So, Gary, hold on. We got somebody who just trumped you. Susan Gray, whose dad was in the United States Coast Guard. Okay, thank you. Do we have anyone in the audience who served in the Merchant Marine or had a family member serve in the Merchant Marine? Your father. Okay, we're going to call on selectmen. Front and center. Front and center. And your name, sir? Dennis Kelly. And? John Marciano for the Merchant Marine. Thank you. And while a moment ago I asked for volunteers, I hope I'm not going to get one for this one. Do we have anybody in the audience who has a family member that was a POW or is still missing in action? I see someone walking forward. I don't know if he's coming for a better seat.
I think there's someone else too. I thought there was someone else walking. I do. Yes.
You, yes? And your name?
Tara Ockman.
Tara Ockman.
Yes.
And I'm going to ask the Reverend Gary Morello to please accompany Tara Ockman for the POW MIA wreath. Thankfully, Tara does other volunteer activities in the town that are a lot more work with a lot less pain. Thank you, Tara. Next, I'm going to call upon the Darien Police Honor Guard for the military salute to honor our fallen veterans. Thank you. Next, I call upon Russ Ebersol, currently serving with the 89th New York Guard Band and also working on special duty, COVID-related duty as active service, to play taps for us. Thank you, Russ. A different echo tax than I was hoping for today. So in conclusion for our ceremony today, I would ask that the Reverend Gary M. Morello from the Rhoden Presbyterian Church come back up to the dais and lead us out with a closing prayer of benediction.
Purity, vigilance, sacrifice. Purity, vigilance, sacrifice. Loved ones, the Bible says in 1 John 4, let us love one another, because love is from God. Everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. Whoever does not know God, for God is love. What evidence we have right here, right now. And so, beloved, as we stand on this sacred soil, concluding a powerful, meaningful, important ceremony, may we unite our hearts as one and close in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the words spoken here this day from this platform. And may these words, as proclaimed here today, ring true every waking morning for each one of us. The men and women that sacrificed their lives to serve our country know love. And so they know you, Father. May we too live a life imitating that love. Purity, vigilance, sacrifice. Purity, vigilance, sacrifice. May it be so. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Morello. And I'm going to close with what I should have opened with, because I was desperate to find my notes, to talk about our Grand Marshal today, Peter Kenyon. And again, I'm going to have to ad lib, so forgive me, Peter, if I leave out the 25 pages of things that I should be saying about you. There are many people here of all ages who know Pete, people his age, people half of his age, people 1/4 of his age, because he's been an active Darienite. While he was away from Darien serving in the Navy in the South Pacific, he was on, the ship was what, Pete? The USS Bossell, a destroyer. In addition to his active duty, Pete spent some 18 years in the Naval Reserve. In addition to his active duty and his reserve duty, where his duties, he went out on 3 different convoy runs while he was in the reserve. He served on 3 convoys and 3 reserve tours. To me, one of the things that I first found out about Pete that I was in awe is that along with Drew Bissett, they pretty much are the 1-2 punch that run the Navy SEAL training program in southern Connecticut. And they have an incredible 73% success graduation rate of getting people into the SEALs. One of whom, Brian Bell, gave the ultimate sacrifice, losing his life in Afghanistan. In addition, Pete has served 16 years on the RTM. Do I remember, is my math reasonably good? Served as moderator of the RTM for 6 of those years. He served on the Darien Environmental Commission and was the voice of reason. He's raised his kids here in Darien that went through the public school system. And probably most importantly, the kids who grew up around him thought he was terrific. So that's our Grand Marshal, Peter Kenyon. As a closing note, I'm sure that everybody here is aware that the firehouses are open, but I think very few people are aware here that the VFW is also serving free hot dogs and hamburgers today, and you do not need to be a member of the VFW to go there. So I would encourage you to come by and say hello to some of the servicemen. But before you leave, I would like those, either active duty or past duty, who have served our country in the armed forces to raise your hands, please. I'd like whoever is standing next to them to turn around and thank them. And before you go, I'd ask each and every one of you to look at one gravestone. Look at that name. Take your pen out of your pocket and your paper. I know that everybody here knows the Boy Scout motto, be prepared, so I'm sure you have pen and paper in your pocket. Write down who they were. And God bless Google. Look them up, see what they find. And if you see another serviceman today, thank them for their service. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to all of our guests and everybody who helped make this day happen. God bless you and have a great Memorial Day. Thank you.